Welcome back, YouTuber 24601 here, or I may be that if Mr. We Have Nukes wins in 2020. Sheepdog Smokey here. Eric Swalwell on assault weapons. Just take the 15 million that are out there and buy them back, because we know how well that works. Swalwell is, before I start reading, relatively well known because when a user on Twitter challenged his gun control stance and basically said, I will not surrender my Second Amendment rights, he responded, we have nukes. Of course, later tried to backpedal, saying it was a joke, but a U.S. congressman telling an American citizen who does not want to be forcibly disarmed by their government, we have nukes, is of course a joke. He's also Democratic presidential candidate for 2020 number, I have lost flippin' count. Bay Area Congressman Eric Swalwell on Monday became the latest person to join the incredibly crowded 2020 Democratic presidential race. His primary policy message of the campaign will be gun control, and he's proposing a mandatory buyback of military-style semi-automatic assault weapons. I will be the first candidate to say that reducing gun violence has to be a top 3 issue. But he won't fix NICS, and he won't work on mental health, and he won't allow enforcement of laws, which would have probably stopped Parkland. Swalwell told Esquire, last year I wrote a bill calling for a buyback and ban on assault weapons, not just to ban future manufacturing, but just to take the 15 million that are out there and buy them back. Note, Swalwell is also pretty famous for saying we're not going to take your guns. He's on record saying you can keep these that you have, but we're not going to sell more, but now we're going to buy them back, and you're going to get them bought back at pennies on the dollar. Swalwell stated that the buyback is mandatory. I'm the only candidate calling for a mandatory national ban and buyback of military-style semi-automatic assault weapons. I'm sorry, this one, I can't stand that phrase. There are no military-style assault weapons that are semi-automatic. The military does not use semi-automatic rifles. They use select fire, which are either safe, semi-auto, 3-shot burst, or automatic. Or they use bolt action or other single fire, high power like the 50 calibers, or that may be semi-automatic, but they don't class that because, well, that's a sniper rifle. That's not a assault weapon. They also ignore that in their bills that call for banning all military-style assault weapons that are semi-automatic and hold more than 5 rounds in a magazine, bans 90+% of pistols. I'm the only candidate calling for a mandatory national ban and buyback of military-style semi-automatic assault weapons, he wrote in a Chronicle op-ed. It's bold and it will cost money, but it's constitutional and it rightly treats gun violence as a life or death matter. Our children deserve better than an attempt to reduce or contain gun violence. Our goal must be to end it. Please tell me, nukes, how are you going to end the human condition that says, I want to hurt people? Look to London, where guns are so hard to find that now we have people calling for GPS tracking of knives. Yes, that's actually the thing. There are people saying put GPS tracking chips in knives because of the epidemic of knife violence now going all over London. But we don't hear calls for it here because it proves people intent on doing harm will use a gun, knife, car, baseball bat, axe, their hands. You will never legislate evil out of the hearts of evil beings. In November 2018, the congressman came under fire after not jokingly, threatening conservative commentator Joe Biggs with nukes after Biggs said he would not comply with the mandatory buyback. So basically, at Rep Swalwell wants a war because that's what you would get. You're out of your effing mind if you think I'll give up my rights and give the government all the power. And it would be a short war, my friend. The government has nukes, too many of them, but they're legit. I'm sure if we talked, we could find common ground to protect our families and communities. It's rather funny, nukes. You and your family are protected by men with automatic weapons. Why is my family required to give up the weapons that I use to protect them? And before anyone says you don't need an AR-15 for home defense, you break into my home and you see me holding it, you're probably going to crap your pants and run. But I also have to maintain control of predator populations near my home. I live in an area where coyotes, wolves, foxes, bobcats are very common. I don't want to wait until they're 20 feet from me. I can go out and I can take one down and save the pack because they will now be afraid of this area because one of them died here and they will avoid the area. If I wait until they're right on me, I have to kill the entire pack that came to my land. I've already lost chickens to it. We have small animal pets and we have children in the neighborhood. So am I supposed to wait until they're right on top of my home and then fight them off with a stick or a knife? Because his ban would take away all but my shotgun. And I can tell you, shotgun ain't real good against a wolf or a coyote. Swalwell's tweet garnered far more replies, 21,000, than likes, 1,900, which is usually an indicator of controversial content. The tweet resurfaced Monday night after Swalwell's presidential announcement. In his interview with Esquire, Swalwell also said that most of his family members are Republicans. California Republicans are no better than Democrats. My parents are on, like, the Republican National Committee mailing list. I'm on mailing lists I can't get taken off of. And a year ago, they bought a Trump-Pence refrigerator magnet that is still on their front fridge. He said, I hope that comes down soon. That means nothing. I guarantee you, Eric, if I had a son that was blatantly trying to violate the constitutional rights of the country, and he voted for Trump, I'd put a Hillary magnet on my fridge just to keep you out of my house. In addition, Swalwell's wife hails from a conservative family in Indiana. Doesn't matter who her family is, doesn't matter where she was raised, matters what Eric is saying. And then I married a Hoosier from southern Indiana, and she grew up literally in the hometown with Pence. I grew up not far from where LBJ grew up. I grew up not far from where Hillary and Bill sat in the governor's mansion for many years. That has nothing to do on my politics. He said her grandfather was a pallbearer at Mike Pence's father's funeral, so I'm around a lot of Republicans. I've been a pallbearer at complete strangers' funerals. You can read his full interview with Esquire here. I'm not going to because it's going to be nothing more than just obey me, just obey me, just obey me. We have nukes. Just obey me. We have nukes. Representative Eric Swalwell of California, when told by a conservative American citizen that he would not comply with an order to be disarmed, thus taking away his Second Amendment rights, he told that American citizen, we have nukes. And when it rightly blew up in his face, he said, well, it was a joke. You want to look, because this is an argument a lot of people use, that ordinary citizens with weapons civilians can own can't take down a military. Look at the Viet Cong. Look at 1770s. Look all throughout history. Look at the slave uprising in Sparta. Slaves overthrew the Spartan government. When a people are tired of subjugation, they find a way to win. But here's something else to consider, nukes. When you order the U.S. military and law enforcement all over the country to violate the constitutional rights of their fellow Americans, by and large, they will walk off their post, turn around, and stand with the people you are trying to subjugate. When the military says, oh, the Constitution is void, so is my oath, bye, they will bring with them a lot of the things that made them a military unit, not least of which is their training. The day is coming when the Democratic Party will declare the Constitution null and void and declare they are the rulers of the United States. And that day will spark the Second American Civil War. It will not end in a single union being able to rebuild. It will end as a fracturing of the United States into multiple countries. And I really don't want to see that day. I am a historian. I know what people went through in the Civil War, brother versus brother, father versus son on the battlefield. I'm thankful now that at least I can look at this and say this would be a civil war where it is the vast majority of the military standing shoulder to shoulder with the American people against a tyrant government determined to subjugate them. People like Swalwell read 1984 and said, this is a great idea. People with half a brain in their head read it and said, I never want to live in this world. Which one are you? You don't have to be a gun owner to realize that the Second Amendment says arms. You don't have to be a historian to realize at the time, Britain was so strapped for cash because they were not able to tax the colonies once we stopped sending our money, and the colonies were strapped for cash because we'd been taxed forever, that we couldn't buy things like Italian repeating rifles or the puckle gun. That's the only reason the Revolutionary War was fought with muskets and flintlock weapons. It's all we could afford. It is not all that was available. You don't have to be anything more than a logical person to realize when the government says you're not allowed to own tools that are useful for your protection, the government has become tyrannical. But I've talked long enough. Let me know what you think. Keep it classy, keep it civil, keep your jokes about Swalwell to a minimum, please. Make sure to like the video as well, and please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so that you'll be kept abreast of all future content. With that said, everyone have a wonderful day, and again, please keep your joking about Swalwell to a minimum.